Hello, I am Susie Terrell with the La Center Historical Museum, and I am here chatting with Mr. Jim Irish, a former mayor of La Center. So I'd like to have you start off, Jim, by telling us a little bit about your background and how you ended up coming to our little town.
And you use the term right, little town. Um, anyway, I am former Mayor Jim Irish. Uh, I lived in Eastern Washington and was involved in the politics there in the town that we were in working at the Hanford site. And the our children had two of our children had grown up and come into the Vancouver area, one for school and one for work, and gotten married and was raising a family. And so, working for Bonneville Power Administration, I was getting up in years to where I'd be ready for retirement. And so, one of the things that you start planning is the top 5, which is the highest 5 years of employment. And then they take the average of that to base your retirement on as far as retirement benefits are concerned. Well, in Eastern Washington, where I was water quality manager for the Federal Hydro System, I was at the top of my pay grade, and I would stay there, just period. Well, different positions opened up within my area of expertise in the Portland area, which is where Bonneville's headquarters was at the Lloyd Center area, and along with the Corps of Engineers and the other federal agencies, that Fish and Wildlife and et cetera, that we collaborated with and worked with. So I put in a transfer to come to the Portland, Vancouver area, Portland area to work and live in Vancouver. And our son and daughter-in-law and family had just moved out here to the center. And so we were looking around out here because it was a nice, quiet little town. It had a total of 950 people when we moved over here, when we decided to move over here. And so it was, but we were on a growth spurt. All of southwestern Washington, it seemed, was on a growth spurt. Battleground, Ridgefield, La Center, Woodland, Yakult were all growing in double digits. We were growing 10, 11, 12%, which is fine for growth, but it has problems if you haven't planned for it. So by living here, we were doing great and full of interest. And but anyway, we made the move here to the center. We got our house in 2000, Y2K, when everything was supposed to come crashing down. We signed the paperwork to have our house built on a lot that we had bought and was paid for where we live now. And it had was starting construction, and in June of 2000, we moved into our house. And so it was with that our son and daughter-in-law and grandson and granddaughter and grandson had moved a little bit outside of town to a house that they had built, and our daughter, who had gotten married, moved into bought their house here in the center. So we had a nice start to, but I couldn't quite get our kids from Eastern Washington to move over here. We have 4 kids and 4 children and 10 grandchildren. So it would have been nice if we had them all together, but the trips back to Eastern Washington is fun and games too. But in doing so, in seeing the growth and seeing the travel, especially driving from the center to Portland to go to work every day, there was the traffic problem was mounting. The 205 bridge was being constructed and opened up, but it didn't alleviate the problem on I-5, which is the road that I had to travel. It seemed like more people then came from 205 over to I-5, which made it much more fun, to where I had to go to work an extra hour early in order to meet the traffic.
Wow.
But it was good. It was involved, and you got to know people on the road. Sometimes good, sometimes not so good. But it was, and where that led to is being in Le Center. My grandfather had always told me that if you didn't like what was going on, then to offer a solution. But only, he says, don't just complain about it. He says, complain about it with a proposal for solving the problem. And maybe if your proposal was good enough, or being able to have the ability to listen to others as they express their problems with what you're proposing, that maybe you could morph it into something that was super good for more than just you, but for everybody concerned. And so we had a problem with growth and the effective growth on the city of Le Center. As far as the infrastructure within the city of Le Center was outdated and running into problems like the sewer. It was an old style sewer, and we had a few times where, when I say we, it's not me taking it personally. This is we, meaning the city of Le Center. I have a habit of taking the city as personal as mine, so I say we, me, mine. But anyway, it had gotten so limited and not being able to handle the potential growth that there was a growth moratorium put in 2 different times where it stopped all growth while we caught up or cleaned up or made changes immediate changes to handle the situation where we were either not meeting the criteria for the water being dumped into the East Fork of the Lewis River, or not being able to handle the flow period. The filters were clogging up. So some of the issues that were brought forward was, well, we'll just have to slow things down. We're growing too much. We'll have to slow things down until we can get caught up. And if you snooze, you lose. So it was brought forward that the city of Le Center had, since back in mid-'80s, had under Mayor Carson had allowed the card rooms to come into the city as an economic measure, which worked out very well for that at the time because the city was really hurting. And with the growth from him on up, and the amount of percentage of taxes that we were allowed to get from the card rooms, which was, according to the state, you could go up to 22% of the gross, not net, gross tax. So if they made $5 million, you could get 22% of that $5 million in tax. The city of Le Center had worked with the card rooms, and they went for 15% to help them and to help the city out. And then that had, when it eliminated, or the immediate problem was caught, then it was lowered down to 12.5%, and then down to 10, and then back up when we got behind the 8 ball again, and then back down, and then back up. And finally, under Mayor Cerveny, it was lowered to 10%, and that's where it was for quite a few years until she decided not to run. And after 7 years, she had enough of it and decided not to run as mayor. Well, there were some issues that had been with the growth and the planning commission, et cetera, that I didn't agree with, and I had thought it and did research, et cetera, came forward with some corrective ideas, and I decided, well, like my grandfather said, I shall probably look at doing something about it. So I put my hat in the ring to run for mayor. Councilmember Richard Curtis had also put his hat in the ring to run, and so we had an interesting election campaign because I had mentored Councilmember Curtis when he wanted to run for council member because he didn't know how to do it, and I was a council member in Eastern Washington for the town of West Richland, so I was telling him, you know, some good ways to do it, etc. Well, when it came time to run for mayor, we were running basically along he was following my steps and I was doing my own, but when the results came out, it was interesting because according to the election results, I had won by 17 votes. Well, since that was less than 100, we had 1,150 registered voters at that time. And I think I walked and knocked on every single door at least twice, maybe 3 times,
Wow.
to get information and to talk to the people. But in order to, an automatic recall was asked for by Councilmember Curtis, and they found one that was back in the days of where you have to punch
the Chad
hole and the Chad, and they said that there was one hanging Chad, and so they gave that vote to Councilmember Curtis, and so I won by 16 votes. But it was, in doing so, we had good staff, some of which had reached their retirement age and had gone on. But we had good staff, and we had a well-balanced budget and a progressive budget that was looking forward because of the growth in the card rooms. And from that, we were able to take a look at the sewer system. Public Works Director Jeff Sarvis had good experience in Troutdale, city of Troutdale, etc., with this membrane type sewer. And with that, he knew one of the operators and senior supervisors, Sue Lawrence, who was a level 4, of which there was only 5 of them in the state of Washington and 10 in the Northwest. And so working with her and getting her impact and input, etc., we were able to come up with a design for using the same footprint, not having to grow any, using the same footprint of the sewer that we had right then and still have right now, and put in the membrane technology, kind of like a dresser drawer, an upright dresser drawer, where you can fill up the bottom drawer with clothes, and then as you get to the next run out of space there, you go to the next one up, and you go to the next one up and the next one up until you fill all 5 drawers. Well, we have that type setup. That's just a simplified example, but we have that type setup with the membrane technology that at the time when we were doing our planning and under the comprehensive growth for the state of Washington and Clark County, we had our planning that we were looking in 20 years for the level of citizens, population in the city of La Center to be 10,000. And with that, we had also at that time knew about in 2005, we knew about the Cowes tribe wanting to take the filing for taking the 152 acres on the west side of I-5, La Center I-5 junction, and turning that into a reservation. So we thought, well, if we get our sewer up to the junction and we get the land annexed in, then we'd be set. Well, we had filed all that land for annexation, including the 152 acres, because it was still just under the process of being filed or applied for a reservation. But anyway, we filed for that, and it was challenged. Our taking the property into the urban growth boundary of the city of La Center was challenged by FutureWise, which was a environmental group that said that we were taking too much agricultural land and turning it into urban use or city use, industrial and city, and that it would eliminate needed agricultural land. Well, obviously we were against that. We filed and we lost. And out of the 900 and some acres that we had asked to be included, we lost approximately just under 700 acres of it was taken out. So there was a big chunk. But we still had, and we did file for later, after we got our new sewer, etc., we did file for carrying the land from Timmon Road up to the I-5 junction, so that we had the La Center junction into the urban growth planning of the city of La Center. And we finally did win, and we got the land up there. Well, at that time, the city was being tied up with a task force for the Clark County, etc., and cities on this issue of the tribe taking the 152 acres into reservation. And so we had a lot of different meetings with Joe Zarelli from the state representative of the state of Washington, and Clark County and the city of Woodland, Richfield, La Center, Battleground, Yakult, as far as for pluses and minuses and City of Vancouver, excuse me. Didn't want to not include them. But we, in doing so, there was a lot of negative. And we were negative at first too, because we were going by the information we had heard. And having worked for the federal government, I worked with the tribes nationwide, and as far as aquatic nuisance species and water quality control from the dams and the Chinook runs, the salmon runs up and down the river, and spilling of water and how it was detrimental, but yet it's needed, and temperature control, etc. As far as for the young salmon coming down the river, etc. And so I came to realize, and in working with the other members of different tribes, that what was being presented was not true, and that I might want to look at the facts, which I did. And in doing so, I realized that it would be in the city of La Center's best interest if we were to form a working relationship with the tribe. And when we did that, when we made that decision, I met with the tribe along with the Public Works Director, Jeffrey Sarvers, and one of the council members, current council members of the city. And we met to discuss how we could get away from this antagonistic type approach to where we get to a working relationship with the tribe. And it was really quite simple, because they wanted that relationship too, but they were bucking us and some of their own tribal people who were going against joining up with us in a business proposition type deal, because of the information that they were being fed about what the city wanted, the same as we were bucking up against the tribe for the information that we were being fed by what the tribe was demanding. And it turned out that 90% of that, on both cases, was not factually, it was hearsay. And so we met at the Red Lion in Longview. Chairman John Barnett, who was chairman of the Cowles tribe at that time, David Barnett, who was his son, he was also a member on the board of the tribe, but he was also a developer. And he's the one who had bought the land down here on 152 acres and then filed it for it to be a reservation. But we met and talked, and I told council member, Chairman John Barnett, who was a very stoic and very stern but very logical, kind of like my grandfather, person who, whether he liked you or not, if you were in need, he would give you the shirt off his back. But not just as a gift or whatever, it's because you needed it, in which case then when you didn't need it, he'd ask for his shirt back. But I realized that we weren't getting anywhere, so I told him while we were sitting there after lunch and over coffee and stuff, that I just decided, I made a decision, and I told Chairman Barnett, I want to draw a line in the sand. And if you'll take my hand, I said, and joining in partnership, I will step over that line, and we can march forward for that as a city and tribe in joint business partnerships, as far as looking out for each other. And he kind of, whoa, and I was thinking about that, and all of a sudden I said, no, wait a minute, I'm sorry, I don't want to do that. I can't do that, which really raised his eyebrows. And I says, because water, wind, and time will erode that line to where it doesn't mean anything anymore. I said, today, I want to draw a line in fresh concrete. And I want to step across that line the same way as I would if the line was drawn in the sand. But this way, that line, if you accept my hand, will be cast in concrete. It won't be affected by time or elements. And he looked at me, and he just stuck out his hand. And so I took his hand, and I ceremoniously stepped across the line, so to speak. And from that point, we started working on how we could work together, and whether it be police forces helping to secure safety for the tribe, or other ways that we could work together. I still had a negative council, controlling council, but that was gradually that was gradually won over to where they saw that the issues that we were talking about had a benefit, and they were addressing all of the 13, 14 issues that we brought forward on paper that were of major concerns to the city. And they were working on how to address them. And we had some MOUs that were brought forward. It's memorandums of understanding by them that at first the council laughed at. And they said, this doesn't ring true. Well, it did ring true, and it was seen to be that way later on as minor changes were made to the agreement. And we got our agreement for the sewer. The city didn't have the money to put the sewer in at that time up to the junction, but the tribe said that they would do that for some land being turned over to the use of some land being turned over to the tribe for roadways or certain other straightening out of the roads on the west side of the freeway that was within our urban growth boundary. And so that had led us up to the issues of today. With the casino did get built. We did get our sewer put in. The tribe did put it in. We got some other the roundabouts that were put in by the tribe in order to get the road on and off ramps, etc., so it wouldn't hang up traffic, etc. But the Washington Department of Transportation, the city of La Center, and the tribe worked together, and those were all done, paid for. That's $38 million for the roundabouts, paid for by the tribe. The sewer was paid for by the tribe. to come, sewer line to come down to the city. And it was moving in a positive stance forward. A lot of the places that we had that were staunchly against the tribe, people-wise, have turned into, wow, this is pretty neat. Look at this, they got that. And everybody was worried about the restaurants. Well, the restaurants that they put in at the casino were 5 different restaurants. Michael Jordan's, the Steak Place, Line and Lure, Rose and Thorn, Tom Urban, and I can't remember the other one. But anyway, they were spaces that were leased out to the restaurants. They're not tribal. They're just spaces that were leased out to the restaurant. The restaurant run them according to their standards, etc. But they have to meet the quality standards of the tribe, obviously. And in doing so, then if they didn't make it, it wasn't the tribe's fault, nor was the tribe sponsoring them, so to speak, in any way, shape, or form over other places such as the restaurants that were here in the city of La Center. But we had certain things that we had agreed to that the tribe actually helped the city, such as we have the card rooms, and there was the issue about the card rooms were going to be hurt and probably end up closing. And the city, of course, 89–90% of our income comes from the card room tax. As a federal entity, we can't tax the tribe, and they don't have to pay anything to us. So it left us back right with the card rooms again. But when they made the agreement with us, and when they filed for their license to operate their casino would have no poker, because they knew that the city of La Center card rooms played poker and poker only. That's all. We couldn't have slot machines and stuff like that because we're only a Class A gambling, or Class 2, Class A gambling. And so they said, well, we don't want to hurt the center. And besides that, we make more money off the slot machines and off the dice games, etc. That we don't need poker. So the tribal casino does not have any poker games. Only the city of La Center. And the workers at the tribal casino, if they want to gamble, they cannot gamble in the casino. That's against the law. So they come down here to the city of La Center to play their games and to give the dealers down here a bad time, etc. Mm-hmm. So it's worked out. It's not all just me. It has worked out gradually for the benefit of both. And the museum is going to, the tribe has a certain amount of their money that has to go into Clark County museums which would be Ridgefield, Clark County, and La Center, because we butt up against them, and so we are affected by their landship. And we will be getting some money from that. We'll be getting some money from the impact funds that they call for La Center, Woodland, and Ridgefield, for the tribe being in there. So it's not all negative. In fact, things are looking a little bit better than the dark future that everybody respected or thought there would be.
Okay, and we're back.
Well, thank you for that short break. I needed it, but I wanted to continue on. We've gone through why I came here and bringing how the city of La Center met the growth challenge that was coming about over the 12 years that I was mayor of the city of La Center. But those are technical issues that are things that can be looked at and seen as yes or no. Yeah, we needed it. No, it's still here. But also within that, in the operation of the city, so to speak, are the people and the people concerns. In 2005, at my prodding, we went out and looked at the city of Linwood's float. They had a float that they were selling. And I thought, well, since we have Miss Teen Licenter that takes part in different parades and etc., they ride with the Mustang Club. Club was very nice to give them back seats of their cars to sit in as they were in the parades. I thought, well, we could do something to enhance that by having something that was specifically the city of Licenter. And Linda Tracy, who was the coordinator and MC, so to speak, of Miss Teen Licenter, and the ladies and the fundraising and the scholarships that the winner gets, etc. We started talking about it, and I went up and looked at the float, and the float was good. She went up and looked at it with us, I should say, and we started talking about the possibilities, and it was a good price, and so the city of Licenter bought it, and we traded it down here, and so in 2005 we had for our days celebration that we had brought out the center float, and it has gone through changes also, just like the city has, but it was something that the people loved. The court got to sit on the float and wave and throw out candy, and it was fun. And the more that we grew, the more that the applicants for the Miss Teen Licenter turned out more, and so we cut back the decorations on the float a little bit in order to handle the Miss Teen Licenter and her 4 court members. And so it's a fantastic thing that the city really loved, and we drew in people from the country and all different kinds of accolades from the different cities whose parades we went to. It got to be quite well known for a small city float, and most of the time I drove it. It was motorized, but along with that, again, I touched on the Miss Teen Licenter. Well, that was a community event, and you had to be from age 13, 12 and a half, 13, up to senior, an 18-year-old, and in order to participate in as a contestant for this. And it turned out to be, we got quite a few very charming, very wonderful ladies, young ladies. And their main purpose was to enjoy being Miss Teen Licenter, but also the duties that they had to as far as showing in being representative of the city of Licenter. And they did a good job of it over the years. They had some really good fun. We also, as an outgrowing of that involvement, we also had a lady from a young girl, a senior in high school, come forward to the city council and brought forward the fact that to show our support of our soldiers who were in the service, young men and women that were in the service and in harm's way, that we ought to put yellow ribbons on the bridge to show our support for their efforts. And when the wars ended, then we would celebrate by taking the bows off the bridge. Well, her name was Lizzie Perot, and the city council endorsed it, and we thought it was a great idea and voted it in that we would endorse it. So we had a great turnout, and we covered the bridge with bows, yellow bows. Not covered it, but spaced them out. And as the years have gone by, the cost of the bows has gone up, and so the number of bows has gone down. But we still remember our servicemen and women, and they're sponsoring the working for the United States and the city of the center. But then we also have the R Days, and it's usually the third weekend in third or fourth weekend in July. But we switched it to August 9th because that was when we turned 100 years old, and in 2009. And so we celebrated it with quite a gala celebration. It was quite fun. But the R Days is just that. It's a fantastic day-long celebration. We have the movie and band playing at night. I mean, Friday night, Saturday night. We have vendors all over in the Holiday Park, and the Kids Zone, which has some fantastic bouncy toys and things that I was a little jealous that I was too old to go play in it, but and face painting and all the rest of this. They tried to get me to have the lady do a connect the dots for all freckles, but she decided she didn't have enough ink to connect to try and even begin to do that. So, but we have fun, and then on Sunday, that was Saturday, and then on Sunday we had barbershop in the park, in which Marlinda Tracy, who was also a member of a quartet, quite an all-female quartet, did I guess it'd be quintet, but anyway, of a cappella singers, and they did quite well. But she would get contestants, and not contestants, but different groups. In fact, we had international champions here, and they would come and perform in the park at the amphitheater that we got put in, and that was another community effort. Is we had a bowl that was cut out originally in Lears for a stage, and that was down there that people could park or play in, and where we could show movies or whatever. But you were sitting on the grass, and the Lions Club, the Center Lions Club, came to me and they said, we have some land down underneath the bridge. How about if we swap the city for that land, and the city puts in a gazebo at the park, so that we could have an actual stage, and it's covered, and bands could play in there even when had bad weather or whatever, or quartets or whatever. And so we knew that the land underneath the bridge wasn't quite worth as much as the gazebo, but it was a good community involvement and effort, and so we did it. And yes, that's where we have our north boat ramp and mini park down there underneath the bridge for citizens to look at the kiosks from the museum association they put down there, and helped us build up and clean up and shape up this park to where we have kayakers going out there by the dozens to enjoy the East Fork of the Lewis River. But all of this, and the summer concerts that we have, and the Christmas tree lighting, which has grown every year, but as the city has, because when I started, I mentioned about the city being 950 people when we first learned about the center. When we moved here, when I became mayor, I had 1,150 population. Right now we have over 3,050, 3,250, I think it is. But when I left in my term as office was up, it was 3,050. That's a pretty large growth, and most of it is in the median age of 40 to 48, and they all extremely love the city, its involvement that they can have in the city and social activities, but also in our love of our history, and
and how they are, the different groups like the Lions and the Museum Association, etc., how they involve the community and how well the community works. Until, of course, revenues go up and down as far as the card rooms are concerned, but they also were involved in the city, in the involvement of activities in the city. They couldn't give money directly because it's gambling tax money or gambling money got from them. So they formed a corporation, or not a corporation, a charitable group that they could donate the money to, and then we could apply different groups like the Lions or the museum or the Miss Tina Center or the Christmas tree lighting ceremony. They could apply for a grant, and they had an actual committee that reviewed the grants and determined whether or not they could get their money. That way, the card rooms also were involved in the activities in the city, and in a lot of cases helped sponsor them. So with this all, I was very pleased when my term of office came to be that, as I stated before, we had the casino out there at the junction. It wasn't having as drastic as an effect on the city as what had been feared and what had been talked about. But the construction of building the roundabouts and the construction of building the sewer line down the road had cut traffic back to where we were seeing some downfall and some setbacks. But they've all, as in almost all cases when the construction is over, the traffic coming back has increased. Not only increased, it has greatly increased. Which is interesting because you sit before you can sit and count the cars and have a couple cups of coffee while you're doing it. Now you don't have time to drink your coffee, it gets cold trying to count all the cars coming down the road into the center. But it is, as in all cases, when I left, we were at the edge of taking a big leap forward and being able to expand out to the junction with businesses, and the planning committee was working out on the zonings for that area out there that we finally got in. And so hopefully the new administration and the continued growth of the city of La Center will see that not sunset, but the sunrise on a new and a economic and diversified city of La Center, but still maintaining the beautiful involvement that the community has with its residents. And I guess that's about sums it up. 12 years worth of fun. I mean, we had good and bad. I'm not saying it was all fun. I'm not that simple-minded, but we had, every time we went down, we had the citizens' involvement and the citizens coming forward to raise us back up again to where the city never really lost its dream. And that's, like I said, we have the slogan that the city was made at the city council and adopted by the city council, and that's living the dream at Exit 16. And that's what we are doing. We have a dream of a population growth up to 10,000 and having the ability financially to support that and still maintain the community that brought the people here in the first place. So with that, I want to thank you for taking the time and hearing my rambling dialogue on 12 years of greatness within the city.
Well, I think we covered a lot of areas and touched on a lot of issues. So I think it was a great interview here, Jim. And thank you very much for taking the time. And I appreciate your service to this little town. And I appreciate your optimism, too, for seeing things go forward and continuing the dream. So,
you're welcome,
thank you.
and thank you for taking the time to gather this up, because it's needed. it's needed for people to be able to draw back to their roots. And we've got people like the Pettix and the Woolridges and the Barnharts and et cetera that have, and Ed Brantford, thank you, that have been in this community forever. And that's their roots. And be able to have them look back and say, yeah, I remember this, and then they can embellish it with their little bit of information so that in, Lord willing, when I'm 105,
There you go.
I can still remember what's going on,
Yeah.
that I can remember and relate back and enjoy the extra time that I have in enjoying what the city has. So I thank you for your effort too.
Well, it's my pleasure. I think history is important, and because I love genealogy, I think telling the stories and hearing it in your own voice, that's my goal, to get a lot of the different community members to give me their stories of La Center and document it. So I appreciate your time.
All right. Thank you.